Natalie AI thing seems utterly preposterous and ridiculous, and even for an MCU show, I'm finding it to be a little bit of a bridge too far to go. The heist crew, all lame. Every single one of them, all lame.
And so in this, I'm not sure what they're meant to be, because this character isn't to be confused with Slug.
Slug, our hacker extraordinaire.
Who is also the exact opposite in the same show. I'm really confused.
Was a massive disappointment in the ratings for them, certainly. We do know, when you go and you look at through these charts, the first couple days it was out, because we have 3 days of Ironheart in these numbers, just like we had 3 days of Daredevil in these numbers. And Daredevil in those first 3 days had over 300 million minutes watched. So, and that was with less possible runtime than something like Ironheart. Yet we know that it hasn't matched that.
I can understand why she's frustrated. That's how I feel watching her interviews.
How do you feel about the impact that she's having on young Black girls? And I'm going to be completely honest, on Black women.
You know, this is yet another area that's getting vibrant. It's getting full in the way that it should.
One major development going on now involves more to do with Dominique Thorne going off at the fans yet again in the midst of the Ironheart ratings disaster.
It's all ego. You would never find me with an ego like that. Not with my fallopian tubes.
Comes to the numbers. Spoiler alert. Kind of exactly what we expect. Ironheart ratings in the gutter.
Now, Thorne delivered the following in a desperate play to salvage the series. I think Marvel fans, she says, just need to take a step back and to stop focusing on our support for both diversity and LGBTQ and claiming that as some form of a hidden message. Now is that we know that Kevin Feige and Bob Iger, they're also engaging in damage control about this show, saying things like, don't trust the negative reviews, don't trust the trades, stuff like that.
Ironheart is the biggest L of Marvel of all time. The reactions are just spectacular. Supposedly he's smarter than Tony Stark, bites an electric wire, sells her soul to gain magic powers, uses new powers to steal. What did the writers mean by this? Smoke detector beeps.
And they were doing everything in their power to really prop up this show. That's exactly why they had RDJ, Robert Downey Jr., some weeks ago going on talk shows to really say that Riri is the best thing to the MCU to represent the legacy of Tony Stark.
Marvel just pulled off one of the boldest, most jaw-dropping casting moves in recent memory, and it's left fans completely divided. Picture this, a major superhero role, tied to one of the most hyped shows in the Marvel Universe, suddenly ripped away from its original star. No warning, no soft transition, just gone.
It deserves your attention. Ironheart deserves your attention. That's how I knew. I was like, oh, they are desperate to get people to watch this show. After I did my reaction, I kept getting, hey, it wasn't that bad. I just watched it. Hey, I just watched the first 3 episodes. It wasn't that.
In her place, a Hollywood powerhouse whose name alone can crash social media in seconds. But this wasn't just some random shakeup. This decision came on the heels of one of Disney's most humiliating stumbles in years. The truth is, Ironheart was supposed to be Marvel's shiny new crown jewel. Ever since Dominique Thorne debuted as Riri Williams in Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Marvel promised fans a fresh young genius to lead a new generation of heroes. But when the show finally landed on Disney+, the excitement lasted about as long as a TikTok trend.
Not only is she incredibly controlling, but she's a bitch about it to everybody who works for her when things inevitably start spiraling.
Oh my God, she is so full of it. This is not.
By the time the first episode's credits rolled, the cracks were already showing, and things only went downhill from there. Today, we're diving deep into the collapse of Ironheart's first season, the backlash that built like a storm online, and how Disney's desperation led them to one of the most unexpected and controversial recasting decisions in Marvel history. And trust me, what happened behind the scenes is far messier than the polished press releases are letting on.
Ironheart might be one of the worst executed ideas ever in the MCU, because under all that garbage was actually potential.
When Ironheart finally dropped on Disney+, Marvel expected fireworks. The trailers promised tech battles, high-stakes drama, and a charismatic lead to carry the torch from Iron Man's legacy. But instead of a roaring reception, the premiere landed with a dull thud. Sure, the critics were polite at first, tossing around words like ambitious and visually interesting, but if you read between the lines, the enthusiasm just wasn't there.
Yeah, and it's like the real Tony Stark, it's like back somehow, and there's like a moment where she's flying through and he's like, who is that? And she's like, I'm Ironheart, Mr. Stark. And he's like, I like that girl. And then he like goes to do something else. Like that would be like the level of something that I think would possibly happen.
Audiences were even less forgiving. Within hours of the premiere, social media was flooded with posts from disappointed fans. One viral tweet read, "I wanted to like Ironheart, but why does Riri feel like a background character in her own show?" Others compared the pacing to watching a loading screen and accused the writing of being hollow. A big chunk of the criticism fell squarely on Dominique Thorne's shoulders. Viewers complained her delivery felt stiff, her emotional beats missed the mark, and that she lacked the larger-than-life charisma Marvel heroes usually bring.
How do you feel about the impact that she's having on young Black girls? And I'm going to be completely honest, on Black women.
You know, this is yet another area that's getting vibrant. It's getting full in the way that
One Reddit thread, which racked up thousands of upvotes, bluntly called her Marvel's weakest lead yet. Behind the scenes, insiders claimed Disney executives were caught off guard. The show had been marketed heavily off Dominique's debut in Wakanda Forever, and they genuinely expected her to win over audiences instantly. But as the premiere weekend numbers came in, the mood shifted. Instead of growing momentum, Disney saw the exact opposite, a massive viewership drop between episodes 1 and 2. And it wasn't just about numbers, it was about trust.
There is also way too much focus on the LGBTQ community by the fandom in a negative manner, and it just needs to go away, I think, for a healthy story to grow, and for Riri to really share her limelight with...
Marvel fans are known for rallying around their heroes, even when critics don't. But this time, there was no rally, just a quiet exodus of viewers who decided Ironheart wasn't worth sticking around for. What Disney did next would send shockwaves through the industry. By the second week of Ironheart, the writing was on the wall. According to a leaked internal performance report, viewership retention had fallen by nearly 60% after the first episode. In streaming terms, that's catastrophic. For a Marvel project, it's unheard of. The data painted an even uglier picture. Not only were people tuning out, but those who stayed weren't engaging online. The fan art, the theory videos, the excited chatter that normally surrounds a Marvel release, practically non-existent. One Disney executive allegedly described the show's online buzz as a gone channel. Inside the Marvel offices, tension started to mount. Creative leads reportedly held emergency meetings with marketing teams to find ways to reignite interest. They tried teaser clips, epic mid-season trailers, even a surprise cameo from a minor MCU character. None of it worked. Viewers who had already checked out weren't coming back. Dominique Thorne, for her part, began addressing the criticism in interviews. But instead of winning back skeptics, her responses seemed to make the situation worse. In one podcast appearance, she brushed off negative reviews as people not getting the vision, which only fueled more backlash. Fans accused her of being dismissive, out of touch, and unwilling to take accountability for the show's failings. Meanwhile, Marvel's higher-ups were starting to think the unthinkable. If Ironheart had any chance of survival, it would need a complete overhaul, and that meant more than just a new story arc or flashy fight scenes. It meant a new face, someone with undeniable star power, someone who could pull in millions of viewers purely on name recognition. And when that name finally leaked to the public, the internet exploded. If the ratings crash was a gut punch for Marvel, what came next felt like a full-on PR nightmare. The criticism of Ironheart began to zero in on one very specific target, Dominique Thorne herself. And this wasn't just a handful of negative comments buried in fan forums, this was a tidal wave. Within weeks, hashtags like #NotMyRiri and Recast Ironheart began trending on Twitter. Fan compilations roasting awkward scenes went viral on TikTok, often paired with sarcastic captions like, "This is supposed to be Iron Man's successor?" Reaction videos dissected her performance, with creators pausing mid-scene to point out wooden line deliveries or odd facial expressions. Some fans were more blunt. One viral Reddit comment simply read, "I can't believe Disney spent $200 million to make me feel nothing." The criticism wasn't just about acting, it was about presence. Riri Williams, as written in the comics, is a bold, brilliant, and slightly quirky young inventor. On screen, Dominique's version came across as withdrawn and unsure, which might have worked in a different kind of drama. But for Marvel's high-energy, quip-heavy brand, it was a mismatch. Dominique didn't take this quietly. In an interview with the Hollywood Times, she defended her portrayal, saying, "I played Riri as a real person, not a cartoon character. If people wanted something else, that's on them." It was an answer meant to sound confident, but it backfired instantly. Screenshots of the quote were shared thousands of times, often with captions like, "Blaming the fans is never a good look." Worse yet, whispers began circulating in the industry press that Disney's own creative team had been split over her casting from the very start. Some insiders allegedly pushed for a more established name in the role, worried that Dominique's limited on-screen experience wouldn't be enough to carry a whole series. At the time, Marvel doubled down on their choice, but now, with the numbers tanking and the online backlash snowballing, those earlier concerns seemed prophetic. By mid-season, it wasn't just a question of whether Ironheart could be saved. saved. It was whether Dominique Thorne could survive the fallout from it. And Disney had already started making moves behind closed doors. While the public argued online, Marvel Studios executives were already sitting in conference rooms discussing what they called Project Riri 2.0. It wasn't about tweaking scripts or adding more CGI explosions. It was about recasting the lead role entirely. The logic was simple. If Ironheart was going to have a second season, it needed a superstar, someone who could generate hype before a single frame was filmed. Behind the scenes, the search began. According to insiders, Disney quietly drew up a short list of potential replacements. And these weren't just any actresses. They were household names, award winners, and social media juggernauts. In the streaming wars, big names mean big numbers. And Disney knew they needed a name that could dominate headlines. Rumors began to swirl in Hollywood circles. Some claimed the studio was looking at fresh faces from the indie film scene. Others insisted Marvel wanted to bring in someone already connected to the MCU to give Ironheart a built-in boost. Weeks went by as secret screen tests were conducted and NDAs were signed and talent agents worked the phones. And then, the name that would set the internet ablaze emerged: Zendaya. The choice was as shocking as it was strategic. Here was an actress who already had Marvel credibility thanks to her role as MJ in the Spider-Man films. She had a massive fan base that spanned Marvel fans, Euphoria viewers, and fashion world followers. Her mere presence in a project was enough to trigger trending hashtags worldwide. The pitch inside Disney was bold. Reimagine Riri Williams not as a cautious newcomer, but as a confident, tech-savvy prodigy who could stand toe-to-toe with any Avenger. Zendaya's version would have sharper wit, stronger screen presence, and most importantly, instant audience goodwill. When word of this leaked to the press, social media imploded. Zendaya fans celebrated like it was Christmas morning, posting fan art and speculative edits of her in Ironheart's armor. Meanwhile, Dominique's defenders called it a betrayal, accusing Disney of throwing their original star under the bus. But Disney wasn't backing down. In their eyes, this wasn't personal. It was survival. Ironheart 2 had to be a hit, and they believed Zendaya was the only one who could make that happen. And for Dominique Thorne, the shock was just beginning. When Disney finally made it official, the entertainment world lit up like Times Square on New Year's Eve. Zendaya was stepping into the armor of Riri Williams for Ironheart 2. The announcement came via a slick Marvel press release, complete with a photoshopped teaser image of Zendaya in a shimmering red and gold suit, looking effortlessly confident. Within minutes, the post racked up millions of likes. But this wasn't just a casting change, it was a statement. Disney wasn't asking Zendaya to save the show. They were giving her the keys to rebuild it from the ground up. Reports claimed she'd been offered a multi-season deal with creative influence over her character's direction, a rarity in the MCU, especially for someone stepping into an already established role. Industry insiders were buzzing with theories. Some believed Disney was positioning Zendaya's Ironheart as a bridge between the Spider-Man films and the broader Avengers storylines. Others speculated she might lead a new Young Avengers-style team-up series. Whatever the plan, one thing was certain: Disney was risking big on her. Social media exploded in every direction. Fans who had drifted away from the first season suddenly declared they couldn't wait for season 2. Fan accounts flooded timelines with fan-made posters, imagining crossover scenes between Zendaya's Riri and Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Some even suggested her casting might finally give Ironheart the blockbuster energy it had been missing. But not everyone was celebrating. A vocal corner of the fandom accused Disney of disrespecting Dominique Thorne, saying she hadn't been given the writing or direction needed to truly shine. Think pieces started appearing online with headlines like, "Was Dominique Thorne set up to fail?" and "Marvel's habit of quick replacements." The debate was fiery, but Disney stayed silent, letting Zendaya's star power do the talking. And Zendaya herself, in her first interview about the role, she played it cool. "I'm honored to step into Riri's shoes. I know how much she means to people, and I'm going to give her everything I've got." It was short, polished, and perfectly calculated. Exactly what Marvel needed to keep hype soaring. Behind closed doors, though, there was one person who wasn't joining in on the applause. For Dominique Thorne, the news hit like a sucker punch. According to sources close to the production, she found out about Zendaya's casting only hours before the official announcement. No heartfelt goodbye from Marvel. No public acknowledgement of her contribution. Just replaced. The fallout was immediate. On the same day Marvel dropped the Zendaya news, Dominique posted a single cryptic Instagram story. A black background, a broken heart emoji, and nothing else. Fans noticed she also unfollowed several Marvel-related accounts, including the official Ironheart page. Within hours, screenshots of her story were being shared across Twitter, sparking a frenzy of speculation. Some alleged she'd stormed out of a private meeting with Marvel executives after learning the decision. Others claimed she'd been quietly negotiating to exit the role for weeks, frustrated by how the first season had been handled. Neither Dominique nor her team confirmed these rumors, but they didn't deny them either. The press pounced on the tension. Entertainment blogs churned out headlines like "Dominique Thorne breaks silence on Ironheart ousting," even though she hadn't said a word publicly. Paparazzi photos of her leaving a Los Angeles cafe, sunglasses on and expression unreadable, became viral fodder for fans eager to read into every detail. And while Zendaya's casting was still dominating the conversation, Dominique's quiet, almost passive-aggressive responses kept the drama alive. She didn't issue any public congratulations. She didn't mention the show at all. Instead, she posted about upcoming unrelated projects, a subtle subtle signal that she was moving on, but not without a sting. Meanwhile, in fan spaces, the divide deepened. Zendaya loyalists argued the recast was the best thing that could happen to Ironheart. Dominique's defenders insisted she'd been set up to take the fall for the show's writing failures. The online arguments grew so intense that Ironheart trended for days, ironically giving the show more attention than it had during its actual run. But while the internet argued, Disney had already made its move. The new Ironheart was in motion, and for Dominique Thorne, the chapter was closed. Or was it? With Zendaya officially stepping in and Dominique stepping out, Ironheart became less of a TV show and more of a battleground for Marvel's fanbase. Overnight, the conversation split into two fiercely loyal camps. On one side were the Zendaya supporters, and they were loud. These fans flooded social media with edits of her in the Ironheart armor, writing captions like, "This is what Riri should have been from the start, and Marvel just saved this show." Fan art poured in, with some depicting Zendaya's Riri standing alongside Tom Holland's Spider-Man, or even leading her own Avengers lineup. For them, this was Marvel's smartest move in years, a guaranteed ratings boost and a chance to inject fresh energy into the character. On the other side were the Dominique defenders. They argued that no actor could have thrived under the weak writing and uneven pacing of Season 1. They accused Disney of scapegoating Dominique instead of fixing the real problems behind the scenes. Fan threads popped up with titles like, "Give Dominique a spin-off, and she deserved better." A few even called for boycotts of Season 2, claiming they wouldn't support a show that tossed its original star aside. And then came the wild theories. Some speculated that Zendaya's casting was part of a secret Marvel plan to merge Ironheart with the Spider-Man timeline, effectively rewriting her character's backstory to fit the broader MCU. Others believe Dominique might make a surprise cameo in Season 2, perhaps as an alternate universe version of Riri, creating a passing of the torch moment to smooth over fan backlash. The more the fans argued, the more attention Ironheart got. Disney, of course, didn't mind. For a show that had been fading into obscurity after Season 1, this level of chatter was a gift. But hype is a dangerous thing. When you raise expectations this high, you either deliver something groundbreaking or crash harder than before. And with Zendaya now in the spotlight, the pressure had never been higher. Marvel Studios is known for its comebacks, but Ironheart 2 might be its biggest risk yet. With Zendaya leading the charge, the show is being retooled from top to bottom. Leaks suggest the tone will be sharper, the action sequence is bigger, and the writing focused on giving Riri a more commanding, charismatic presence. The idea? Make her the next breakout Marvel star, someone who could anchor crossover films and possibly lead the next Avengers lineup. But as every Marvel fan knows, a casting change doesn't fix everything. The real question is whether audiences will buy into Zendaya's version of Riri Williams. Will they accept her as the genius inventor stepping into Iron Man's legacy? Or will Dominique's shadow linger over the role, reminding viewers of the controversy that brought us here? Some fictional insiders even warn that if Ironheart 2 stumbles, it could signal trouble for other second-tier Marvel series, making studios more cautious about greenlighting risky projects. The stakes are bigger than just one show. This is about Marvel's ability to adapt and survive in a streaming landscape that's getting more competitive by the day. For Dominique Thorne, the book might not be completely closed. Whispers in the industry suggest she's in early talks for a different superhero project, one that could put her in direct competition with the MCU. If that happens, this recast might just be the start of a bigger battle between two Riris, each fighting for the audience's loyalty in their own way. So, is this the end of Dominique Thorne's Marvel journey, or will she return one day in a twist no one saw coming? One thing's for sure, the future of Ironheart has never been more uncertain or more talked about. And in Hollywood, sometimes that's all you really need to win.